Okay, let's start. Let me move you into here so I can look into you. So yeah, I'm computer programmer with 20 years of development. I work in different positions from like kind of low-level developer to mid-level to senior level, team lead, and even like IT company business owner. So I took all the positions. Front end, back end, various applications for devices, you almost everything. Last 10, 15 years, predominantly it was .NET. So I work with older version .NET, with newest like .NET 8, .NET 10. Again, front end and back end, API, cloud technology. Yeah, and on front end also I use Angular. So, so that was like TypeScript, Java, JavaScript technology. So that's basically it. That's my stack. And yeah,
Okay.
what else
Um,
you wanna
so
know?
at Wells, it looks like you recently came off
Layoff.
a layoff. Okay. So, and it's based on what it says on the resume. So the first year there, you were there as a contractor, and
Correct.
then after that, you became full time.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And then they had a layoff.
Yeah.
Were you going into the office regular? Like, was it
Yes.
100% on site?
It was 3 days per week in the office.
Okay. 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 The other thing, just to kind of go into the resume here a little bit, I noticed certifications, and then some of the certifications have dates. Are the dates listed in parentheses the when it elapsed,
Yeah.
the
Some
certifications?
certification expired, but company. So I decided not to refresh them, but I decided to keep them because I did do those, certifications.
Okay.
Only like for example, that AZ900, that Azure
Uh-huh.
certificate, it's not expired. It's kind of endless. Microsoft give it forever. So
Oh, okay. So
some
that one
certi
is current.
yeah,
Okay.
that one is current. Correct.
Okay. So, with regards to Wells, and I've got your resume here, but if you can maybe go into some details in terms of, the types of projects that you were working on, the things that you were building there. If you can give me an idea of what your day to day look like there.
Well, yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I work in three different departments there, so it was like different application. But
Okay.
let's say the most latest, the most recent, and the most kind of the most classic was working with, let's call it internal audit application. That was again tech stack was .NET 8. By the way, you can see me, right? It's not because I see
Yeah, yeah, I could see you. Yeah,
I
yeah, I
can see
could see
some
you perfectly
delays, and
fine.
I'm not sure if it's me or okay.
Oh,
So
no,
yeah,
no delays on my end.
it was pretty standard .NET tech stack like .NET and Microsoft SQL Server on the back end. Also, it was MongoDB on the back end, and on front end it was Angular version 19. Day to day was usually we had agile meetings, and unfortunately at Wells we had a lot of meetings. So basically, frankly, 4 hours per day was meetings,
Okay,
which is
it's a lot.
yeah, it was not very productive time. And but basically we had our developers agile meetings, then we had business meeting with the business, then was some yeah, and those meetings was lengthy. So even agile stand up that's supposed to be like 15 minutes, it took sometimes
Mhm.
1 hour.
Right.
I'm telling you like typical stuff for big corporation. I heard like BOA have the same. I heard that Aetna. I actually worked at Aetna. Aetna also had some lengthy stuff. And after that, I have to start. I actually have to work, and I worked coding, resolving. And again, beside that major application, it's never one application. So there are a lot of small kind of a satellite application, SSAS packages, some standalone bat files written sometimes in weird languages. Sometimes it was Python, sometimes Yeah, it's also I have to support it. By the way, everything in the cloud, so it was on hybrid cloud, Azure. Well, they recently had an open shift, so I also have like kind of, let's call it a little bit cloud administration, kind of like a DevOps. So basically, I say 1 day per week. It was definitely related to not specifically programming, but to deploying, organizing deployment process, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Which is also, I believe, it's relatively typical.
So you mentioned cloud. Any on-prem presence, and if so, how much? What would you say percentage-wise was on-prem?
Nothing on-prem.
Nothing. Okay.
Uh, well, big corporations like Wells Fargo, they usually have, Wells Fargo have several own data centers, you know,
Hmm.
so nothing is on-prem. Small, usually small. It's especially interesting question because when I did my Azure certification,
Hmm.
they brought the statistics that a lot of companies, like smaller companies, sometimes big companies, they actually go back on premises. So I personally have not seen it for a while. I saw it in the past a lot, but again, it's been told, and when I started to ask, yeah, some corporations go on premises. Apparently,
Okay.
it's cheaper, more independent. They don't have to deal with Microsoft or Amazon. So yeah, there are like plus and minuses, and
Right. Right. Um. So let's do this. I do have some scripted questions here. So walk me through a recent .NET application that you built,
sure.
and what your role was. Your role in that.
I'll walk you through the recent .NET application. Well, there was a number of them, but let's say it was API.
Okay.
And the latest was I was senior developer. Kind of senior developer dash team lead. So in Well, sometimes there are like several, they play these games like there are several team leads. So basically, what application? Typical REST API application. If you create in .NET like create API in using template create API. It had tokenized authorization, so JWT tokens. Part of API was public, part of it was private, because it was like public in quotes because it was public inside of the organization, but let's call it public. So was some part was completely open for other groups, and was part that was closed for, you know, it has most sensitive information, let's say that. Um, most of logic was in the business layer. Some complex logic was in the SQL layer on the database and the SQL server. Again, both it has two databases, so API connected to two databases, Mongo and SQL Server. But most of the data was in SQL Server. So, and that's it. Obviously, was some architecturing, some troubleshooting. Actually, API kind of sensitive for architecture
Hmm.
because you cannot change it. So if you change it and there are other parties, you cannot change it because they already wrote the endpoint that consume it, right? So if
Right.
you change endpoint, they need to rewrite it and they're not gonna be happy. So versioning involved. So I have to create separate version. And on top of it, most of organizations have right now all kind of unit tests, all kind of testing. So else I developed that. Initially it was without tests, but I added additional projects to do massive unit tests with. I believe code coverage was 90%, which is pretty high.
Okay. Um, I'm gonna so like here's a troubleshooting question. So let's say an
Sure.
API that normally takes 200 milliseconds now takes 8 seconds. Walk me through how you would troubleshoot that situation?
Well, first of all, I will ask when it happened, what time of day, if it's happened. Is it
Okay.
working right now? Is it always become 8 seconds, or it's just like, let's say at 8 a.m. when people usually log in the system, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will also ask, was any recent deployment to the and deployment could be code deployment, could be some database changes. So I will ask
Okay.
those kind of questions. So, and sometimes it's give me already where to dig it closer. So for example, if like somebody put some massive amount of data in the database over the weekend,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, I know what happened, right? Also, there are all kind of monitoring tools. Um, there are monitoring tools that also can say, they can say bottlenecks. Sometimes they say, hey, some queries taking long time, and again, so if it's related to database, it could be related to business layer too.
Okay.
So after that, I will try to work how to reproduce it. So I will work with the development database and I see if it happens in development or what we can do. Sometimes you need to copy the data from production, obfuscate it. Um, Sometimes you just see the code and you can see some like parts are slower. Logging, look at the logs, look at the timeouts, look at the if it's query, work with optimization of the query and so on. It's complex. Troubleshooting is complex.
Okay. So let's say a customer says to you that the application is slow. What's your first response?
It's quite common. It's quite common. Yeah, obviously I will not love to customer, I will say, but I mean it's quite common scenario, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The same thing. I will ask like, yeah, like understood. Hey, explain me. Is it like whole application? Which particular like screen? Which particular operation? So what you doing? Show me. Show me like let's do screen sharing session. Show me, and I will probably record this session. In parallel, if I have access to production. By the way, like in the financial industry, we usually don't have access to production. But if I
Right.
do, I may run some queries, to see some indexes, to see some database logs. Again, I will try to I will run client in parallel, and we try to, by using developers tools, I will try to see some networking delay. So I'm kind of mostly tell you that issue happens
Mhm.
on database. It's not always the case. Sometimes it happens like over the network. So database
Right.
is fine, and it could be like some networking issue on the client, on JavaScript client. So I can see it there too. The bottom line, I will ask client to reproduce it in front of me. And quite common, it's not applications are slow, but some parts of applications are slow.
Okay.
And then
Uh,
I gonna dig that particular part, of course.
okay. Uh, give if you could maybe give me an example of the most difficult production issue that you resolved.
Yeah, define what is difficult. Yeah, I see. Well, usually difficult when it's yeah. Usually production it's always difficult, but also it's difficult when it's in tech support they have like different level like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
So the first is the worst. So when it's need to be done right away, and like I give you example already, kind of mentioned like something happening, let's say at 8 a.m. when user login, like when like several thousand people log in into the system to
Right.
get some data. Yeah, and I saw it happened. It was a Tetna organization. Yeah, and
Have you ever run into a production issue at Wells that was complicated, or maybe in the beginning people really didn't know what the problem was, and so there was um, you had to do some investigation, look into a bunch of different things, and then figure out, oh, hey, here's the problem, and this is how we're going to fix it. Like, do you have a situation where something like that at Wells may have happened and you did
Yeah, a
that?
lot. Yeah, you just asked me for any example. If you want a specific for wells, yeah, it's all the time. Like
Yeah,
it's all the time. We never know what happened, and quite often it happened Monday because on this, particularly at wells, a lot of process running over weekend, like in
yeah.
all financial organization. And something happens on the weekend, something like some process took long time to execute and lock everything, and you like go like you starting to you like driving to work and you started to get messages like, hey, production is down. So it's already a stress, and you come in
Right.
and to office and you see that it's actually indeed like white screen, and again, there are some monitoring tools that tell us what exactly. I can look at the logs, logs usually. It's good to have log in text file and in the database. So it's good to have both. Like if one of them down, then you can look at another one. And you can see in those logs timeouts. You can see some looking information. So basically looking at the logs, look,
Mm.
or sometimes it's UI. Sometimes UI, like I said, white screen. That's already pretty difficult. But sometimes UI appear okay, but data is not coming through. That's also probably API
So,
level.
yeah, when you were at Wells, did you guys like when it comes to like AI, what were you guys doing with AI in terms of what in your position or in your role there, what was AI being used for in at Wells?
Um, well, was as a developer, I mostly use GitHub Copilot. But
Okay.
we also had Microsoft Copilot, which was not for development purposes. I mean, it kind of sucks, frankly. But it's good for emails. It's good for for office tools. But for development, yeah, I use GitHub Copilot.
And then what exactly are you using it for? Like, are you using it strictly to build out the code for you, or are you using it more just to um, create more maybe speed or efficiency in the work that you do? What exactly were you
That's
using it for?
too, yeah. I use it for even sometimes for silly things like I type the prompt, hey, look at the comments in that particular unit,
Yeah,
and rewrite them nicely with good language, because
yeah,
sometimes developers, so it could be something silly like that. If it's troubleshooting, I say, hey, analyze that particular like method or that unit of code and say
okay,
which part you believe could be time consuming. And sometimes, not always, here your AI actually not that good. Sometimes AI can tell like, hey, I see that in one method you have like back and forth calls to the database. I mean, frankly, that kind of stuff I can see with my own eyes. I don't need AI for that. But I mean, I have AI,
yeah,
why not? You know?
yeah,
Right. Yeah, I can say write code. AI pretty good is writing unit tests. So I can say, hey, write unit tests. But again, very often that unit test not gonna work. Very often it's gonna create it's like bloated. So after that, I need to fix it, and start to
right,
give
right,
AI more like atomized requests. Like, okay, you wrote this one, but in the header you write it that way. Rewrite header in asynchronous way or synchronous, or So basically, it's first it goes big, and sometimes it's take a lot of tries because AI could create. I will not afraid of that word stupid stuff. Sometimes AI generate complete garbage, and I'm like, okay, just toss it, let's regenerate, but I give more precise commands to regenerate, and sometimes write like pseudocode. Hey, okay, regenerated this way, pseudocode. AI could be very good in translating. So let's say I have a method. I have a method
Hmm.
that kind of slow, which like I mentioned, like going to database back and forth, right? I said, you know what? Rewrite it in SQL so we don't go back and forth. And here's the trick. For example, if I say just fix this code, AI will try to optimize this code, but it will not advise me, at least now I have not seen it, it will not advise me to put all this code into SQL.
Hmm.
So there are some limitations here. But it's very good. If I wanna switch code from .NET to TypeScript to types from TypeScript to SQL, it's actually very good in translating the code. And sometimes it's finding, sometimes there are those called macarona codes. There are some like long links that if I will rewrite manually, I may miss, you know. So AI actually good with finding that kind of stuff.
Okay. So that's all the questions that I have. Is there any questions that you have for me?
Yeah, could you tell me what kind of yeah what basically projects in your organization, what you expect from developer, what need to be done, how I can help, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so unfortunately, so I'm not super familiar with this account. I'm helping out a colleague of mine
Hmm.
who typically works on Bank of America. Predominantly, I'm in San Diego, and I typically support the two big utility companies here in Southern California. So I'm not too familiar with Bank of America. The only thing I could tell you is that this particular position resides in you would be a
In
part of the
Chandler.
dev team, the
Okay,
development team,
okay, that's good. I'm
right?
develop. I want to be part of the dev team. Yeah.
Yeah, so this position would be a part of that team.
Hmm.
But outside of that, I don't know anything about the specific types of projects that you would be a part of or the
Hmm.
things that you would be building out. But
Yeah, I see. Well,
yeah,
I mean, I heard from many people who worked in both Wells and BOA. A lot of people
yeah,
said that it's from some point it's very similar.
so
From
yeah,
another point, it really depends from department. Like I said, I worked actually in three different departments, and I
yeah,
will tell you more. I work actually in many financial organizations. Not everything even in my resume. So I actually work in three different banks. It just was brief, and I decided not to. So I work once in Ukrainian bank. I work in Phoenix Western Alliance Bank. Yeah,
yeah.
it's kind of the same stuff. So I
Okay,
work for Hyper Company. It's a company that develop banking application for those cash oriented.
okay,
Remember the time when marijuana became legal, and they have to create banks to deal with that because normal banks refuse to work with money.
oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I did remember hearing about because they used to be when they first opened up, it was cash only.
yeah, yeah.
Those places.
So was
Yeah.
created several banks, not one, several banks. Company that wrote software was in Arizona. Some banks was in Colorado, some not in Colorado. It was a lot of kind of. It was interesting. So
Yeah. And you
yeah,
live in Chandler, right?
yes, correct. Yeah,
Okay. So no, obviously no issues going into the office two, three times a week.
yeah, yeah. That's
Okay.
okay. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
my other question maybe is I understand it's a contracting position, right? So it will be a layer between BOA and me. Am I right? It's not direct position.
Yes. Yes,
Do you
correct.
guys have benefits like medical and so on?
So those would be provided by, let me see who you're working with. Norwin, I think. Yeah.
Yes,
So
Norwin will
Norwin would
provide it.
handle
Okay.
your payroll, right? So you're, obviously getting you paid, but then they would also, if there was any benefits in terms of medical and things like that. they're the ones who handle that. We don't
Okay. Okay, makes
do
sense.
that here.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Well, that's all my questions. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So what I'd like to do, so the next step in this process is to send you a technical assessment. So there is a technical assessment that I would need you to do.
Hmm.
I'll email it to you.
Sure.
Basically, it's a link to a place. It's called Ropes. Is
Ropes? Never heard of that, but okay.
ROPES. Yeah. So you'll see a email come through from them. I think it, I don't know for sure. It either will come from them or maybe it looks like it might come from us, either
Okay.
WWT or Ropes. But you'll get a technical assessment. It's just going to gauge where you're at
Sure.
on the .NET. It's going to test you on .NET, SQL, and some front end stuff,
Sounds good.
just to see where you're at with some stuff. And then from there, depending on the results, we'll get your information in front of the customer, um, and then go from there.
Sounds good.
So I'll get
Okay.
that to you here in the next like 5 to 10 minutes, and then I'll send it to the same email that I sent the invitation to.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sergey, for your time today, and yeah, we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Ken. You have a
All
great
right.
rest of the
Thanks.
day. Bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye bye.